In a small village nestled between rolling hills and a shimmering lake, there was a little lantern that lived in the corner of a cozy cottage. The lantern wasn't like the others. It was tiny, delicate, and made of the finest glass. Its flame, though small, flickered brightly, casting a warm and gentle glow throughout the cottage. The lantern's name was Florence, and she was proud of the light she gave, even though she often wished she could shine brighter like the big lanterns on the village streets. Those lanterns were tall and grand, and their flames burned brightly, lighting the way for everyone who passed by. Florence's owner, an old woman named Charlotte, took great care of her. Every evening, Charlotte would polish the little lantern's glass and light the wick with great care. "You're my favorite lantern, Florence," Charlotte would say, smiling at the soft glow the lantern gave off. "You light up my heart, and that's all that matters." Florence, though grateful for Charlotte's kindness, couldn't help but feel small compared to the other grand lanterns. She longed to be as big and bright as they were, to light up the entire village with her glow. She dreamed of being useful in more ways than just lighting Charlotte's cottage. She wished she could do something that would make a real difference. One evening, as Florence's flame flickered softly in the window, a loud storm began to roll in. The wind howled, and dark clouds covered the moon. Charlotte closed the shutters tightly, but the storm was fierce, and the wind rattled the windows. "Stay safe, Florence," Charlotte said, making sure the lantern was securely placed on the table. "I'll keep the shutters closed tight. The storm is coming fast, but we'll be okay inside." But outside, the storm was growing stronger, and the wind was pushing through the village with a terrifying force. The tall lanterns along the streets flickered and struggled against the gusts, and soon, one by one, their flames were snuffed out. The streets went dark. Florence watched from the window, feeling helpless, and said, "If I could just be bigger, I could help," she thought to herself. "I could light up the whole village and keep everyone safe from the storm. But I'm so small I can't do anything." Just then, a faint sound reached Florence's ears. It was a soft cry, almost like someone calling for help. Florence strained her ears, listening carefully. "Help! Help!" the voice cried again, faint but clear. It was coming from the village, somewhere beyond the darkness. Florence felt a flutter in her heart. "Someone needs help," she thought. "But how can I help in this storm? I'm just a little lantern." Despite her doubts, Florence knew she had to do something. She couldn't just sit by and wait. Her flame might be small, but it was enough to light the way. She gathered all her courage and called out to Charlotte. "Charlotte, Charlotte, please, I need to help," she said. Florence's voice was soft, but it carried through the still air. Charlotte, startled by the voice, rushed to Florence's side. "What is it, my dear lantern?" Charlotte asked, her face filled with concern. "The storm is too strong and someone needs help in the village," Florence said, her flame flickering with determination. "Please, Charlotte, can you take me outside? I may be small, but I want to help," she said. Charlotte looked out the window, her eyes wide with worry. The storm raged on, and the village streets were completely dark. But she could hear the distant cries for help as well. "All right, Florence," Charlotte said, her voice gentle but resolute. "We'll go together." Charlotte picked up the little lantern carefully, holding it close to her chest. Florence's flame shone brightly in the storm, casting a warm glow that made the darkness seem less frightening. Charlotte opened the door, and together they stepped out into the wind and rain. The village was eerily quiet, with no light to guide the way. The only sound was the howling wind and the distant cries of someone in need. Charlotte followed the faint voice, holding Florence up high so the little lantern could light their path. After a short walk, they came to the village square, where they found a family of travelers who had gotten lost in the storm. They were huddled together under a tree, shivering from the cold and rain. "Thank goodness you found us! one of the travelers exclaimed, her voice trembling. "We've been lost for hours and the storm is so fierce, we couldn't find our way home." Florence's flame flickered with warmth. "Don't worry," Florence said, her light casting a gentle glow over the travelers. "I'll guide you." Charlotte smiled, her heart filled with pride, and said, "Florence's flame may be small, but it is enough to light the way. Follow us and we'll get you to safety." The travelers nodded gratefully, and together they walked through the storm, following the light of Florence's little flame. As they walked, Florence felt proud and important. Her light might not have been as bright as the tall lanterns, but it was enough to help others in need. It was enough to make a difference. The storm raged on for hours, but finally the travelers were safely guided to their home. They thanked Charlotte and Florence, their faces filled with relief and gratitude. "You saved us," one of the travelers said, her voice full of emotion. "We would never have made it without your light. Thank you." Florence's flame flickered happily. "I'm just glad I could help," she said softly. Charlotte smiled warmly at Florence. Charlotte expressed, "You did more than help. You showed us that no matter how small we are, we all have the power to make a difference." As the storm began to calm, Charlotte and Florence walked back home, the little lantern's light shining brightly through the darkness. Florence felt proud and content, knowing that even though she wasn't as big as the other lanterns, she was just as important. Florence's light might have been small, but it was powerful enough to help those in need. From that day on, Florence knew that even the smallest light could make the biggest difference. Whether in a storm or in everyday life, every small act of kindness and courage counted. And just like the tiny flame of Florence's lantern, the love and care she gave to others would always shine bright.